Hi guys, it's Mark at Frostbite Furniture again. We haven't done a video in quite a while, so I thought I would kind of get back to it. I'd show you kind of what we're working on right now and how we do some of the things we do. Today I'm working on refinishing a pine dining room table for a couple. It's going to go in a real beautiful home over in the Brainerd Lakes area. I picked this table up just a few days ago actually. We've already run it through our stripping tank. That peels all the poly off of it and most of the stain. After that we went through and gave the whole thing a real good sand. We kind of started off at an 80 grit and then worked our way up. Got it nice and smooth, just how we would like it. We don't go quite as smooth on the pine because well, it really doesn't build up that luster quite as well as some of the hardwoods anyhow. So but we still get it real smooth. And right now I'm working on putting on our blotch control that we put before we stain. You see, pine will get really blotchy sometimes when you stain it. So what I use, at least on some of the nicer projects here, it's called Charles Neal Pre-Color Conditioner. I'll put it up close for you. This stuff is a little on the pricey side, but it tends to be about the best stuff I've found for controlling blotch and getting the color to be really even when we go to stain the product. It's pretty simple to put on. You simply kind of brush it on. You go a little bit on the thick side. So I'll just kind of get working it a little bit here. One of the keys that I'm really trying to do on this one is I'm a little worried about these legs because they're, a turned leg like this I didn't get. It's possible there's little bits and pieces in the bottom of some of these cracks here that I didn't get as well. The original manufacturer on this actually left these legs a little on the rough side in some of the grooves here because pine doesn't turn all that well anyhow, and they just didn't quite sand it down as smooth as they could in the bottom of the grooves especially. So because of the roughness in there, unless I was to take it apart and then return the thing, I'm really not going to get it a whole lot better than what it is, and I'm not going to take it apart and return it. It's really not that bad, and I think it might take away from some of the character of what's going on here. It's meant to be kind of a almost a farmhouse cottage sort of look. But the key is to get it on, this stuff on there very, very smooth and evenly. Although not too even. If we wanted it perfectly even, we'd spray it and not brush it. But then it would be too even and it just doesn't work very well. What the product does is it kind of evens the difference between the harder parts of the wood and the softer parts of the wood. Kind of wipe it all on there. Get it kind of smoothen out there. Like I was saying, if we were to put it super, super even, it really wouldn't do its job. But as even as we can possibly get it with a brush is definitely not going to be that overly even. It's just if we were to spray it and do it perfect, they say it doesn't work quite as well. Or at least that's what the manufacturer says, and I tend to just kind of go with what the manufacturer says on this. So I'll keep on giving this a nice little coat here. As you can see probably in the background here, I already did the other half. I didn't really think to do a video until we were part way through. And so I already got that done. I already had a little bit of the one side of this one done when we decided to do the video. But anyhow, after we brush this all on here, as you can see I kind of take a rag and wipe it just a little bit. Get rid of any excess that's sitting on the surface once it's had a little opportunity to soak in. If you get too much sitting on the surface, then it doesn't work quite right either. One thing I like about this stuff is it really doesn't have any kind of stink to it, which is nice. So many of our finishes smell so bad and some even got to wear respirators and all kinds of PPE. Whereas this is a pretty, well, it allows you to be pretty laid back when applying it. And I kind of like the ability to be kind of laid back when finishing. And it's kind of nice. You can sit there. If I'm not recording a video, I normally just got some tunes going. Got my phone plugged into some speakers out here, and if there's just a little brushing it on, there's no noise, so you don't have to wear ear protection. Just sit there and listen to some music, maybe sometimes a little comedy or some podcasts. It's really not a bad way to spend an afternoon. One of the things I found that I kind of like is to try to keep moving this a little bit so that your working edge kind of stays wet. I don't know truly how important it is, but I kind of like when we can run it like that because it just feels to me that it works a little better that way. I could be wrong, but it just seems to work a little touch better. We'll get this little bit done here. I don't really worry about getting the underside of the table because except for this part right here, it's not going to get any stain anyhow. So if you're not going to stain it, you don't got to worry about blotch controlling it. And even if it did blotch just a touch, it's underneath the table. And well, it's under the table. It doesn't have to be all that perfect because short of maybe a kid looking for a Lego, nobody's going to be crawling around underneath the dining room table anyhow. Okay, go and give this a little wipe. You also kind of look, as I'm doing this here, I look for different kind of variations in the sheen, kind of the way the light reflects off of it. That will sometimes tell me if I missed the spot or got a little thin, got a little thick. Sometimes the reflection, sometimes the reflection will tell you more than about what's really going on than the direct color. Turn this a little bit this way because this stuff, it looks kind of neat as it goes on to this old pine here. It's kind of it brings out some neat color to it. Sometimes you apply some of these clear finishes or pre-coats, and it's almost a shame that we're going to go back and color them later because I think it looks awful nice this way. What are some of the other keys too to getting a pine kind of a nice blotch-free finish, besides being sure to use a clear coat or a pre-stain ahead of time? And there's a lot of other pre-stains too. I've used a couple of Minwax products. There's a Varathane product I've used on floors that seems to work really well for that application. I tried this on a floor one time and it didn't seem to work out too well, so we are going to stay away from that. But on furniture, this stuff is the absolute bomb, especially on a pine. I've heard it works really well on like a curly maple and that kind of stuff also, but I haven't done a lot of tinting on curly maple. A couple times that I've used it, I just finish it clear anyhow. So you don't have to worry about blotching if it's clear, so I haven't used it on it. Mostly just on pine for me and this stuff. Pine, fir, various types of softwoods like that. But saying, one of the things you really want to do when you're trying to get a nice clear finish on pine, especially a refinished pine like this, because it may look like it, but this isn't new wood, this is a quite old dining room table, is you want to do an extra good job of getting all the old finish off. If you get any kind of variations, even just a little subtle hint of some of the old stuff in there, then you can really end up with some blotchiness, especially on pine. So when you think you've sanded it enough on the pine, you want to usually sand it just a little bit more. A lot of times on some other woods, especially maybe an oak or something like that, I'll go and if I'm going to go darker, than what it originally is. I'll maybe leave just a little bit of finish, because if I'm going darker, it really doesn't matter. But on pine, even if you try to do that, you'll often end up with some blotchiness. So, we wipe this all on. Well, we brush it on, wipe it off. Kind of a wax on, wax off sort of deal here. But you just kind of wipe it. You don't like scrub it in, wipe it off. You just make sure there's nothing on the surface. Then after that, we'll go over here. Just a moment. Going for a little ride over there. Now the other half of the table has already been taken care of here. I did it a while ago. Let's actually turn you a little bit back over here. We'll get to that in just a moment. We did this other table a while ago. You gotta let it sit for about an hour or so, and I think we're up to about an hour on this. So I'm gonna, as soon as I get my glove off, I'll give it a feel. Yeah. I think we're good. So after you let it sit for an hour, you're gonna wanna hand sand it. Actually, I better look at my clock to make sure I know when to start hand sanding this one we just did. Okay, now this in between coats here, because you do 2 coats of the stuff, you want to sand it with, hand sand it with about a 220. So, take out my 220 paper. I have a little jig that I use for cutting sandpaper. It's a really simple jig. All it is a small piece of wood with a little stop right here, and then I screwed a hacksaw blade, or I nailed, I guess, old hacksaw blade across the cutting edge, front edge, so it sticks up just a little bit. Think kind of like a saran wrap or a tinfoil kind of a box. And this distance is the same distance as these sanding blocks that I like to use. I like these 3M sanding blocks. They're pretty cheap, they seem to work really well, and they're comfortable in my hand. So I like them. So all you gotta do to cut this is you just put the sandpaper in there on the edge of the table, and just like cutting a piece of saran wrap or tinfoil. Put it in the block, get it squared off. This has little tiny teeth inside there that grab the sandpaper. You want to kind of hold the flapper up, get it up in there as good as you can. There. Now, back to the workpiece. So all we're going to do is just kind of, it's just a light sand. Actually, you know what? I thought that was ready. As I'm sanding a little bit, it is not quite ready. It's almost. But I'm going to pause it. We're going to come back in a little bit, and I'll show you how we sand this. Okay, guys, I'm back. It is definitely dry now. I probably even waited a little longer than I need to. But I'm going to go ahead and get sanding on this. Alright guys, well that was it for the sanding. Now next we are going to go through and I'm going to apply a second coat all over it. Stay tuned for that if you'd like. And what we do after the next coat is I use 220 to sand this. Then between this coat and the second coat, we're going to let it sit for at least 6 hours. Probably because it's getting on supper time here, we're going to be doing it tomorrow morning or maybe even tomorrow afternoon because we got a few things going on tomorrow morning. You can let it sit longer, but it's got to sit for at least 6 hours. And then you sand it with a 320. We'll go over it with that. I may or may not make a video of that part of it, but you know, it's the same thing as this. It's just we're using a different grit sandpaper. There's really nothing different to look at. And that'll be about it. And then we go through and we stain it as normal, and with that blotch control on, it should be very blotch free, or at least as absolutely minimal blotching as is possible with pine. Alright, well, I'm going to just kind of put the camera on a wide view here as I go through and finish off the rest. Stay tuned, or I'll see you next time. Alright, bye-bye. Hey guys, we're back. We just had a little problem with the SD card getting full. Well guys, that's all we got for you today. And I'm just kind of curious here of how many people actually watch these videos, especially watch them all the way to the end. So if you are hearing me right now, that means you watched the video right to the very end. I'd like to hear from you. I'll give the first person that lets me know that they heard this part of the message a free cribbage board. I'll send you one of our basic cribbage boards. So if you are hearing this part, send me a message with your address on it, and we will send the cribbage board in the mail to you. Alright, thank you very much. Have a good night. Bye.